What you are about to hear is a composite story. It is built from real falls, real recoveries, and the real geology of a real place that kills more quietly and more often than people believe. But the man at the center of it is an invention, assembled from every version of him I have watched step past the line. No real person is named here. He is a dramatization. The drop is not. The drop is exactly as real as it looks, and it looks like the edge of the world. Horseshoe Bend, if you have somehow not seen it, is the photograph everyone has seen. A great sweeping curve of green river 1,000 feet below a rim of pale sandstone, the whole Colorado bending back on itself in a near-perfect horseshoe, and the light doing impossible things to it at the beginning and end of every day. People come from every country on Earth to stand at that rim. Most of them stand at it the way you should stand at the edge of a 1,000-foot drop, which is to say back from it with respect, with a hand on a child or a railing or nothing at all but good sense. And some of them come to make an image, and a few of those few decide that good sense is the one thing standing between them and the shot. It was not always like this. For most of its life, this overlook was a quiet local secret, a place you found by word of mouth and a rough half-mile of sand. Then the world discovered it all at once, the way the world discovers things now, through a screen, and it became one of the most photographed spots on the planet, and the crowds came by the busload for a picture they had already seen 1,000 times and wanted to prove they had stood inside. They eventually built a railing at the main overlook after enough people were hurt to make a railing unavoidable. But a railing guards one small section of a rim that runs a long way in both directions, open and unmarked, and the shot everybody actually wants is never at the railing. It is always a little further out where the crowd thins and the frame opens and the protection ends. And people follow each other out there, which is the part that frightens me most. A rim like this runs on permission, and the permission is other people. One person steps past the railing to get a cleaner frame, and stands there and does not die, and every person watching quietly files that away as proof that it is fine. I have watched a line of strangers migrate toward the edge over one afternoon, each one anchored by the one before, all of them drifting, until the person at the front is standing somewhere no one would ever have chosen to stand alone. The crowd does not make the rock any stronger. It only makes the edge feel crowded, and a crowded edge feels safe. And safe is the exact feeling this place hands out for free right before it collects. Here is the thing about that rim that the photographs never tell you. The rock is Navajo sandstone, and sandstone does not fail the way you expect stone to fail. It does not crack and warn you. Wind and water work at the base of the rim for a very long time, hollowing it, so that what looks from above like a solid lip of rock is often an overhang, a shelf cantilevered out over 1,000 feet of nothing, with far less underneath it than you would ever guess. You cannot see the undercut from on top. That is the entire problem. The most solid-looking edge, the flat, inviting shelf that seems built for exactly one photographer to stand on, is sometimes the one with nothing holding it up but habit and time. And time is not on your side up there. It is patient, and it is keeping score, and it has all day. He was in his 40s, and he knew what he was doing. I want to be fair to him, because this story is not about a fool. He was a real photographer, a good one, the kind who owns the light instead of just catching it, and he had driven a long way and planned around the season and the moon and the exact minutes of the golden hour, and he was not going to waste it. That is the thing I have learned to watch for, more than inexperience. Competence. The confident ones are the ones who step past the line because they trust themselves, and trusting yourself is a fine thing to do almost everywhere on Earth except at the edge of a cliff that does not care how good you are. You have to understand what the light does to a person like that because it is the engine of the whole thing, and it is not vanity, exactly. Golden hour is not a mood, it is a deadline. For maybe 20 minutes, twice a day, the sun sits low enough to turn ordinary rock to fire, and a landscape photographer plans his entire trip around those minutes. And when they finally arrive, there is a clock running in his chest that drowns out almost every other signal a body can send. The light was climbing toward those minutes. He could feel them coming. And a man counting down to something he drove a long way for does not hear the word undercut the way you would hear it on a normal afternoon. He hears it as noise between himself and the shot. I learned some of the rest later, the way we always learn it, in pieces, from a car left in the lot and a bag left on the rim. There was a notebook in the bag with locations and times worked out in careful handwriting, a whole trip mapped around chasing the good hours from one landmark to the next, and this rim was one line in it. He was not a tourist, grabbing a snapshot to prove he had been here. He was a craftsman at the top of his craft, and I have come to believe that the craft was part of what killed him, because it had earned him the right to trust his own eye everywhere. And there is exactly one place on Earth where your eye is the thing you should not trust. I saw the red first. You always see the red first out there, against all that pale stone and blue sky. He was already past the main viewing area, out on the open rim where there is no railing and never has been, moving with purpose, scouting angles. I walked out to him the way I have walked out to 1,000 of them, easy, unhurried, because if you come in, hot people dig in. I told him what I tell everyone: stay back from the edge. The rock is undercut, and you cannot see it from where you are standing. He thanked me. He genuinely did, and then he did not move, because thanking a ranger and obeying a ranger are two entirely different acts. And he had already in his head filed me under obstacles rather than under help. That was the first time. There would be a second. There is a rhythm to these, and I know it now the way you know a song you wish you did not. The light got better, which is to say worse, because the better the light, the closer they go. Other people on the rim noticed him before I did the second time. A couple stepped back and pointed, the way people do when they see someone doing a thing their own body will not let them do. He had set his tripod near the very lip, and he was leaning out past it, checking the frame, and the frame was pulling him. The way the frame always pulls them, 1 more inch, 1 more degree, because the river was doing something with the light that he had driven a long way to catch and would not get again. I went out a second time, and this time I was not easy about it. I told him the rock could go without warning. I told him I had helped carry people off this rim who were just as sure as he was. I told him the shot was not worth it, and he looked at me with something I have seen too many times, a kind of patient, faraway agreement, the look of a man who is nodding at you while his mind is entirely somewhere else, entirely inside the rectangle of his viewfinder, and I understood that my words were going in and finding nothing to hold on to. He said he would be careful, as if care were a force that could hold up sandstone. And here is the quiet mechanical truth underneath all of it, the part I wish I could make every visitor feel in their own body before they ever reach the rim. A person looking through a camera is a person who has voluntarily blinded himself to almost everything that is not in the frame. The viewfinder crops the world down to a rectangle. Your peripheral vision, the ancient early warning system that has kept your ancestors off of ledges for 1,000,000 years, is simply switched off, taped over, traded away for a better composition. Depth flattens. The edge stops feeling like an edge and becomes a line in a picture. He was not being reckless in the moment he stepped wrong. He was being careful about the wrong thing with the wrong sense, at the exact worst place on earth to do it. I have replayed that second conversation more times than I can count, looking for the sentence that would have worked, the exact words that would have reached him. I do not think they exist. I have warned tour guides and geologists and grandfathers who should have known better, and I have warned teenagers who did not know anything at all. And the ones who go over are almost never the ones who failed to understand the danger. They are the ones who understood it and decided it did not apply to them today, for this shot, in this light. Understanding is not the thing that saves people up here. Obedience is. And obedience is the one thing I am not allowed to require. I want to tell you about a different afternoon because I do not only carry the ones I lost. There was a young woman some months back out past the railing with her phone held up over the drop, and I gave her the same words I gave the man in red. And she did the thing almost nobody does. She looked down at where her feet actually were, really looked, and something in her face changed and she stepped back. That is the whole story. She stepped back and she took her picture from 6 feet in, and it was, I promise you, a perfectly good picture, and she is alive. And she will never know how close the difference was, because the entire mercy of listening is that it feels like nothing happened. Nothing did happen. That is the reward. It is quiet and it is invisible, and almost no one recognizes it when they get it. I know what happened next better than any witness because the camera told us. That is the strange gift and the strange horror of this particular story. He kept shooting. The card holds the whole sequence, time-stamped, frame after frame, and you can watch his afternoon happen in stills. You can watch him work the composition. You can watch the light climb toward the good minutes. And you can watch, if you know what you are looking at, the exact stretch where he moved from the solid rim onto the undercut shelf, because the angle drops just slightly, the horizon line shifting as he stepped to the one spot that gave him the frame he wanted and put 1,000 feet of air beneath a slab of rock that was already quietly done holding. Let me ask you something before I finish this. And I'm asking because the comments on these videos are the closest thing I have to talking back to the man in red. What is the one thing you would risk too much for? Not in theory, really. The shot, the summit, the view, the post, the moment you cannot prove happened unless you have the picture. Tell me in the comments and be honest, because every single person who has gone off this rim believed, right up until the rock moved, that their one thing was the exception. It never is. The rim does not grade on how badly you wanted it. He set the tripod on the shelf. The last few frames are steadier, which means he had the legs planted and had stopped hand-holding, which means he had committed to the spot, had decided it was solid, had made the judgment that is not a photographer's judgment to make. And weight is the one thing an undercut shelf likes least of all. A cantilever holds for as long as nothing tests it, and then one afternoon, a man and a tripod and a bag of gear all settle onto the very end of the lever arm, and together they become the small final argument the rock had been waiting 1,000 quiet years to lose. It is not drama that brings these shelves down. It is arithmetic, the same as everything else out here. Load in one place and nothing underneath it. Sandstone that has spent 1,000 years being hollowed out from below does not announce the moment it stops being a ledge and starts being a diving board. There is no crack, no groan, no movie sound. The edge simply calves the way a piece of a glacier calves, a clean, silent departure of rock from rock, and everything standing on it goes with it. I was walking back toward him when it happened. I did not see him fall so much as I saw the red be there, and then not be there. A piece of the rim and a piece of color simply gone from the skyline. And the sound that reached me was not the sound you would imagine. It was small. A cliff 1,000 feet tall makes a very small sound when it takes someone, and I have never gotten that smallness out of my head. I called it in before I had finished understanding it. I already knew. You always already know. The recovery took the rest of the day and into the next because 1,000 feet of sandstone does not give anyone back easily, and the people who do that work are the quiet heroes of every one of these stories, roping down into the place the rest of us only photograph. They rope down in the heat past the same undercut rock that just took a life, to bring a stranger home to people who will need something to bury and something to hold. Nobody photographs them. There is no golden hour for a recovery, no crowd, no post. It is the least visible and most important work anyone does at that rim, and the men and women who do it carry each of these out of the canyon and then carry it quietly for the rest of their own lives. He asked a great deal of them, the man in red, more than he ever knew he was asking, in exchange for a picture he did not live to keep. They brought him up, and on a shelf well below the rim, snagged and scratched but intact, one of them found the camera still attached to the sheared-off head of the tripod, the strap having caught on the rock like the canyon had decided to keep one thing safe out of spite. Here is the part I think about most. The last full frame he took, the one before the very last, is beautiful. I am not going to lie to you and tell you it was worthless, that he died for nothing, for a bad picture, because that would be easier and it would not be true. It was the shot. The light he had chased is right there in it, the river bending gold and green, the shadows exactly where a master would want them. He got it. That is the cruelty at the center of this. He got the photograph. And then there is one more frame after it, taken a second or two later, and that one is not beautiful. That one is a blur of pale rock and tilted sky, the accidental frame a camera takes when it is already falling. And between those two images is the entire lesson of this channel, the whole thing in the space of a single second. The technician who read the card did not want to talk about it afterward, and I did not push. There is something uniquely terrible about a sequence like that, a man's last 20 minutes preserved in perfect focus, each frame proof that he was calm, that he was working, that he had no idea, that the disaster did not announce itself even to the machine pointed at the world. We are used to thinking of a camera as a witness. This one was a witness that kept working after the thing it was witnessing became the photographer himself. It recorded the light he wanted, and then it recorded the fall, and it did both with the same indifferent competence because that is all a camera is. A machine that does not know the difference between a sunset and a catastrophe and will hold on to either one for you forever. If that second, the one between the beautiful frame and the blur, means anything to you, then do the small thing that carries it to the next person standing too close to their own edge. Like this video, because that is how it reaches someone the evening before their sunrise hike instead of the evening after. Subscribe, so you are here for the next one. Not for me, and not for a number on a screen. Do it so that one more person, somewhere, takes one step back from a rim they were about to trust. Longtime viewers know I have said a version of this before, standing over a different kind of loss. Back when a man wanted a photograph of a bison badly enough to close the distance a wild animal had asked him to keep. It is the same lesson every time, and the wild places keep teaching it because we keep failing the test. The best photograph is not the sharpest one, or the closest one, or the one that finally catches the light. The best photograph is the one with a living photographer on the other side of the lens. Every image is worthless the instant it costs the person who made it. There is no frame, no view, no golden hour on earth that is improved by your absence from the world that comes after it. The people who love you did not fall in love with your portfolio. They fell for the person holding the camera, and that person is not replaceable, and that person is not a rounding error you get to spend on a better composition. No editor, no gallery, no algorithm has ever once asked what a photograph cost the photographer. Only the people at home ask that, and they ask it forever. The camera survived. I told you that at the start. And you probably thought it was a figure of speech. It is not. It sat in an evidence box, and then someday it went back to a family who will never quite be able to look at what is on it. He died for one photo, and the photo lives, and he does not. And if you could hold those two facts in your hand at the same time the way I have had to, you would never step past another line as long as you lived. The red windbreaker is the thing people remember, the bright spot on the pale rim. But it is the second to last frame that haunts me. He got exactly what he came for. It just turned out that getting it and keeping it were not the same thing. Next time we leave the edge behind and go down into the water, where the danger does not ask you to lean toward it, where it comes up to meet you whether you lean or not. Until then, when you stand somewhere beautiful and something in you says just one more step, just one more inch, understand that the something is not your eye for a photograph. It is the oldest and least wise voice you carry, and the rim has heard it 1,000 times, and the rim is still there, and the people who listen to it are not. This has been Doomed Departures. Stay safe, and we will see you on the next one.